Welcome to the Wrasslun Show. I'm at Adam Conta, and you are definitely not Matthew Sukram. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest tag team partner for this week's podcast, the illustrious Andrew Kent from We Have Till 5.
That's
Andrew,
me.
What have I gotten myself into?
Well, I think that you've quite frankly come to your senses, as I did a long time ago, and when we kicked Matt Sukram out. We made him history. We kicked him through the glass. We thumbsed him down, and he's gone for 6 days.
Listen, this is a tryout, Matt. Andrew. See, look at this.
Fantastic.
I'm still not used to it. I
can't get out of it. Yeah.
No. Matthew Sukram will be back with us sooner rather than later. But this week, Andrew is going to be joining me on the Wrasslun Show. Now, Andrew, we do things a little bit differently on this show. We don't list things here. I mean, we do list them, but we don't put them in a specific order like you do on We Have Till 5. This is more of a free-flowing idea kind of show.
So you get to talk more.
Absolutely. I do get to talk more.
What have I gotten myself into?
It goes around, comes around, my friend. Let's get talking about our subject today by asking a very important question. Andrew, what do you think about Baron Corbin?
I think Baron Corbin should be great, and for some reason is not. I thought he had some great matches in NXT. I think he's got a great look. I think he's got a great, honestly, as kind of superficial as it is, I think he's got a great Titantron video. I think he's got a great song. I think he's got everything except some hair. But for some reason, they don't translate into his matches for some reason. I think he is a solid 80% who should be a 95%.
Could part of the reason that he's not where he needs to be is because WWE is punishing him? That seems to be the rumor that's making the rounds now, that Corbin has said some things on Twitter that has upset management, and because of that, they put him on TV and they had him blow his Money in the Bank contract. Yeah. Because it's not a briefcase, Andrew. They had him lose in what everyone seems to be calling a basic match against John Cena. And they're moving him away from what many consider to be a main event spot towards the U.S. title picture. Some have even speculated that the glorious debut we saw on SmackDown of Bobby Roode was as a way to take Baron Corbin's spot. Wow. In essence, he's being punished.
Yes.
But he's not alone. Enzo Amore, for many weeks now, has been rumored to have nuclear heat with the boys in the back. And this heat has gotten him into all kinds of trouble. And it also has led to the breakup of his tag team, the subsequent squashing week after week at the boot of his friend Big Cass, and an apparent move to a lesser show, that being 205 Live. Is he being punished? And that's the topic of conversation today. On-air punishments. Are they a real thing? And should they be a real thing? Is it a smart move or not? Andrew, before we answer the question about whether it's good for business or not, and if that's what's happening with these guys, let's talk a little bit about some famous cases in which guys have supposedly been punished on television. The first one that automatically springs to my head is Perry Saturn.
Don't say Moppy. No.
I didn't say...
That's the only one that came to my mind.
I didn't say Moppy. I said Perry Saturn. Perry Saturn, as we all know, had an encounter where he roughed up enhancement talent Mike Bell. And the rumor is, of course, that as punishment, he was given the Perry Saturn gimmick of a weirdo, where he hung around with a mop.
Moppy.
And said, "You're welcome," an awful lot.
Yeah.
Now, I want to bring up the case of Perry Saturn because it's a very strange case in which the punishment ended up being, I think, the best thing that ever happened to Perry Saturn.
Agreed.
This was a guy that started to get over as a character, which was something I think we can both agree he was kind of lacking. Saturn's a fantastic wrestler, but in the personality department, he was a little lacking. So in this case, I guess one could argue maybe it wasn't a punishment. Maybe they were trying to do something different. But I think a lot of people would argue that no, it definitely was a punishment that just went wrong. Okay, so we have a case in which a guy was punished for roughing up an enhancement talent. But here's a question. If you're going to choose to punish a wrestler for something he's done, how do you do that when they're your world champion? Or how do you do that when they're leaving for another company? Or how about when it's a group of guys and one of them's your world champion and two of them are leaving the company? Well, I guess if there's only one guy left, everything falls onto him. Of course, I'm referencing the curtain call.
Yeah.
So walk us through this, Andrew. What happened with the curtain call and who ended up being punished for it? So
the curtain call is kind of the death of kayfabe, I think. At least what was the road to it. It was early. It must have been Was it 1995? Was it late?
1996.
Was it that late? Wow, my goodness. So it's 1996, and it's a Madison Square Garden house show, and it's the last night that Kevin Nash and Scott Hall will be in the company. Earlier in the night, how did the matches work? Kevin Nash was working
Shawn Michaels
in the cage. Earlier in the night, Razor Ramon had fought Triple H. And as Kevin Nash and Shawn Michaels are fighting in the cage after the match, Triple H and Razor Ramon come down and they share a big hug in the ring. And it's heels and faces. And the Clique had been rumored for some time now. But that was the first time that anyone had ever seen that actually come together in the ring. And this was a big, big, big no-no back in 1996. Kayfabe was still hanging on by a thread at this point. The idea that this is real. The heels hate the faces and the faces hate the heels. They don't drink together in the bars. They don't travel together. They don't stay in the same hotels. They are completely separate entities. And as this coming together happened in the ring, people in the back were outraged, and it got videoed, and it hit whatever form of anything it could hit back in 1996, but it was a big deal. And they couldn't punish Kevin Nash because he was gone. Couldn't punish Scott Hall because he was also gone. My goodness, you can't punish Shawn Michaels. He's the WWF champion.
Yeah, but why couldn't you?
I agree with you.
Why couldn't you punish Shawn Michaels?
There's no good reason other than the fact that Shawn was probably going to walk. I'm guessing that's the only reason. If they punish Shawn Michaels, he walks. They know Triple H isn't going to walk. He literally hates WCW more than anybody in the whole world. Shawn Michaels, being the prima donna he was in 1996, may very well walk out of the company if they try to do anything to him. That could be the only rationale. That, and Vince McMahon doesn't always do things fairly.
Okay, so then here's the question then. Why not fine the four guys? I mean, Nash and Hall, sure, I get it. I don't know how much time was left on their contract. That may have been they were out the door right the next day. I honestly don't know. I don't remember, and I don't care enough to look it up.
Yeah.
But if they had even been there for a day, a fine to all of those guys, at the very least, take the belt off of Shawn. Again,
he might walk.
Again, if the idea is you need to punish these guys in this way. This is where I think the whole logic of punishing a guy on television falls apart completely, where it becomes, well, certain guys you can do that for.
Yeah.
A Perry Saturn you can do that for.
Yeah.
A Triple H you can do that for back then. But Shawn Michaels, no, you couldn't do that to him.
Well, you couldn't. I disagree with it. I'm certainly not defending the idea, but it all fell on Triple H, who then lost a pretty high-profile WrestleMania squash match to the Ultimate Warrior. He was the champion at the time, or he was supposed to get a title chance.
The rumor is, the story goes that he was slated to win the King of the Ring in 1996, that very year.
That's right.
And then that plan was dropped, and instead he ended up doing jobs for everybody under the sun. And, the story goes, I believe Triple H even told this on one of his DVDs. He says, you're just going to have to learn to eat poop, except he didn't say poop, and learn to like it.
Yeah.
And we're going to discuss that in a bit more detail, and whether we think this idea of punishing a guy on television can work. Is it the right move? A little bit more after the break.
Hey, it's at Matthew Sucrum here to tell you about the Wrasslun Show podcast. You've
got nothing. However, we have till 5 every Friday in the Wrasslun Show network. This week we're counting down on...
Do we have a problem?
Yeah, Smarky Smark here is trying to take over this commercial.
Did someone say takeover? Because on the Go Home spot, I cover all the goings on in NXT, including takeovers, as well as everything else happening in WWE and beyond.
Where did you come from, Jeff?
I just drove in.
Well, take the next exit, would you? This is my commercial.
You mean our commercial?
Cut. Try it again. I don't want this commercial to end up like some of the more regrettable movies I review on Ropes to Reels. I want it to end up like one of the good movies I review on Ropes to Reels.
Nobody asked you, Drew.
Oh, you want to go, Sparky Plug?
When you host the Wrasslun Show, the Go Home Spot, Ropes to Reels, and We Have Till 5 podcasts all on one network, spontaneous host battle royals just kind of happen. The Wrasslun Show Network, where everything is wrestling and wrestling is everything. All right, Andrew. So the Click is an interesting story when it comes to this idea of punishing guys on air, because we see some of the holes in this logic of doing something on air to punish a wrestler. And is it a smart move? The question I have is, what's the alternative, right? Because, I mean, is it simply that they think this is the absolute best route? Is it just an idea of, well, this is the way it's always been done? Surely there must be a better way, Andrew.
I think that one main reason is that this is the way it's always been done. I think it's a habit. I don't think that they even think that it's the best way to go about it. I truly do believe that wrestling can be very petty. We've seen it throughout the years with JBL and the crumbs on his bag. We've seen it with Vince McMahon getting Titus O'Neil off the air for an extended period of time because he dared touch the boss.
Not fun fact. I canceled my subscription.
That's right. I
to
heard
WWE
that,
Network, and I refused to subscribe again until Titus O'Neil was back on television.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because I was so infuriated with that whole situation. Because to me, it reeked of hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon is a guy that will oftentimes have fun at the wrestler's expense and oftentimes be involved in the pranks himself. He wants to be one of the boys.
Yeah.
But the moment that someone tries to turn the table on him, suddenly the guy is being suspended and punished in an incredibly harsh way. And not only punished, not just a guy, but a guy that has been loyal, respectful, an incredible ambassador for the company.
Yeah.
And here he was, not even, he didn't hurt the guy. He wasn't being rude. In fact, there were stories circulating that he grabbed Vince's arm so that Stephanie could get past him. He was trying to be gentlemanly about the whole thing. Now, whether or not that's the case, I don't think it really makes a difference.
No.
The point is, the punishment did not fit the crime.
No, it did not.
And this is what I'm saying. Has there ever been a time when this sort of punishment was fitting? And was there ever a time when this sort of punishment worked? Has there ever been a time where someone said, well, man, am I ever glad that I was jobbed out for X amount of weeks, because did I ever learn my lesson? Let's face it, Triple H was the kind of guy that no matter what happened to him, he was still going to work hard. He was still going to keep his nose clean. And for that matter, he was still going to do things that he wanted to do if he felt it was right. Triple H didn't learn anything from being punished for 6 months, except that, he could take whatever was dished out at him.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the lesson, but if it was, I think there were better ways you could have gone about it.
The only one that I can think I remembered being, I hope this smartens the guy up, and this might be, was when Roman Reigns got suspended for 30 days and Seth Rollins did that interview. Do you remember that Seth Rollins interview, quote unquote, with Roman Reigns?
No, I don't remember that at all.
Oh man, it was great. Seth Rollins was still a heel at the time. Oh well, heel as you can be, being Seth Rollins against Roman Reigns. So Roman Reigns had just been suspended for 30 days for violating the wellness policy.
Right.
They still had a feud to build to. They did not strip him of the title.
So this would have been
post WrestleMania 32.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Sometime in the last 400 and so days.
So it would have been around Battleground time, or a little bit before that.
It was heading into their match for Battleground.
Heading into the summer.
Yeah.
We'll just generalize
and
that.
So they have this match to build, and they're not stripping Reigns of the title. So Seth Rollins conducts a quote-unquote interview with Roman Reigns where he asks him all these questions about drug use, and then he uses old footage that basically is incriminating. And he's asking fake questions and using stock footage to get Roman Reigns incredibly flippant and nonchalant answers to his drug-related questions. And I remember thinking, you know what? Roman Reigns because a lot of the times those things get swept under the carpet. Randy Orton has been swept under the carpet with wellness policy stuff before.
Yes.
There's been people who have been swept under the carpet, and should they have stripped him of the title? Should they have fined him? Should they have done something more? Probably. This man is a role model for children. He's off air for 30 days because he made a mistake. And I remember thinking about that interview and just being like, okay, well, I hope Roman Reigns first of all, I kind of hoped he was told about it. Hope he was informed that they would be conducting this interview. But I remember thinking okay, this will never happen to Roman Reigns again.
I don't know that I would necessarily qualify that into the on-air punishment category.
No.
Only because, here's the thing, Seth Rollins is a heel. And he's in a program with Roman Reigns. So he's setting out to say these things and do these things. And it's made very clear that what he's doing is it's phony. It's not real what's presented in front of it. I don't think that was presented as a way to kind of humiliate him. To me, the punishment fit the crime. The guy violated his policy.
Yeah.
And in the middle of a hot angle, they sent him home. And they said, no, I'm sorry. You violated the policy. The policy clearly states when you violate it, you're gone for 30 days.
Yeah.
And they did that. Now, again, I'm not going to say whether or not a guy should be stripped of a title or not for a violation or for as a punishment. It's the number of it's what you do with those options, right? That's why I said in the case of the Shawn Michaels thing, if this was such a terrible thing that the appropriate response for Triple H was to job him out for 6 months, should you not have at least done something similar to a guy who was just as responsible? Heck, knowing Shawn Michaels, maybe more so, as a mastermind. But I don't want to harp on that too much longer.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do instead is I want to talk about the current situation. Baron Corbin and Enzo Amore. They're the guy making headlines. So let's take each of these cases individually. Let's look at them and say, okay, Are they being punished on TV? And is that the right way to go about it? First, let's talk about Baron Corbin. So the story goes that Corbin said some things on Twitter to a military vet, and that irked the higher-ups at WWE. So on one hand, I can completely see why this would upset people in the WWE. On the other hand, this guy's a heel, and WWE has encouraged their talent to be their personas on a social media setting.
Absolutely.
So realistically, are they just being incredible hypocrites and saying, we told you to be heelish, but leave the military alone?
Not to the U.S. military.
Or is this a case of people are blowing out of proportion and they're saying, okay, well, we don't know the reason why Baron Corbin is being quote unquote punished. So this has got to be it, because this is the only thing that he's done that we know as fans and outsiders would make WWE upset. What's your take on it, Andrew? Do you think this is something that WWE would look at and say, not so sure we want to push this guy anymore?
I do think that that's something that they would do. I obviously, like you, cannot speak to whether or not that is the truth. I remember, and I'm not really privy to, I've gone back to like the Stone Age in wrestling. I really have. I've quit. Besides this podcast, I've gotten rid of pretty much every other wrestling page on my Facebook and stuff like that. I miss the days where I was able to be surprised by things without getting dirt sheeted everywhere. So I don't usually know these backstage things anymore. But I remember seeing him lose the briefcase and then watching SummerSlam with my girlfriend and being like, if Baron Corbin loses this match clean, something is amiss. And I knew nothing about the backstage, nothing. So to me, it has to be something, because I think it would have been a great angle if he would have lost the briefcase and then either beat John Cena or lost a tough match or something like that. I knew, I've been watching wrestling long enough. I looked at my girlfriend and I said, listen, if he loses tonight clean, something is wrong. So would the WWE punish a guy like Baron Corbin for doing something like being disparaging to a U.S. military? Yes, I can't. There's nothing that I've seen from the WWE in the last few years that would that would tell me that that's not something that they would do. In fact, I fully expect, I can't even remember her name now because I didn't know who she was, but she was one of my Mae Young picks because of her connection to the U.S. military. They do tribute for the troops. That I can't speak to whether or not that's what he's done, but yeah, that sounds like something the WWE would do. Now,
you covered a lot of stuff that I'm going to circle back around to, because I feel like it's important to look at each of these individually. Let's talk about the Money in the Bank briefcase.
Yep.
Okay. Obviously, the fact that he loses the briefcase makes everybody stand up and say, oh, clearly he's done something to anger the office. I'm not so sure.
Agreed.
I'm not so sure. And the reason I'm not so sure is a couple of different things. Number one, they said the same thing with Damien Sandow, but I feel like the Damien Sandow situation is the same situation as Baron Corbin, which is that at the time that Damien Sandow cashed in and lost, the decision had been made to take the WWE in a different direction, specifically merging the SmackDown and Raw championships into one title. Mm-hmm. So I'm, again, this is my opinion. I don't know. It's never been confirmed, but my theory is that they looked at it and said, well, this guy has a SmackDown title contract. Once we merge them, he either loses it or we give him a shot there. We don't see him playing into that role, so we just have to get it out of the way. And I think that's the same thing that happened with Baron Corbin. I think the cash-in was not a punishment. I think it served two purposes. One, I think it served one purpose, which was to build extra heat for the John Cena contest. And I also think it was just bad timing.
Yeah.
I honestly think it was this idea where maybe they would have gone with Baron as champion and then passed it along to Cena or a Nakamura or someone else. And I honestly feel like the call was made that they said, you know what? we're going to keep Jinder with it for a little bit longer. And without having a backup plan, they said, well, then let's just get it out of the way.
If I could throw a small wrench into that,
Please
though,
do.
This is a 365-day contract.
100%. You're right.
The landscape could have changed in the next 200 days. You know what I mean?
certainly right.
Right now, they've gone the Jinder route to, and I think a lot of the people who are saying this are right, and I don't think the WWE is wrong to do it. This idea that Jinder is being pushed as champion because of their wanting to enter specifically strongly into India. I've heard. Have you heard that? Have you not heard that?
Well, here's the thing. I can see that for him winning the belt.
Yeah.
But I think that's a flimsy excuse when it comes to why he still got it.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I think he's still got it because he's worked his tail off and because he's doing a good job.
Yeah, I think so. They got to book him a little different. The only thing that I do like Jinder Mahal. I like what he's doing, but the Singh brothers really do need to stop factoring into every single, at least the same way. Because it happened at SummerSlam the exact same way. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about.
When it stops getting heat, I'll agree with you.
Fair enough.
But as long as it's getting heat.
But is it the wrong heat, though?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? He's got the wrong heat with me, I'll tell you that.
They're still booing Jinder and they're cheering his opponent. And that's the way you want to go with it.
All right.
But getting back to Baron Corbin, let's talk about the reason why it may have been cashed in as opposed to holding on to it. I think they also did it as a short-term solution to boost the heat between him and John Cena, to say, here's a good way. And I'll be honest with you, when it happened, I thought that was awesome. I thought it was a great way to build heat.
As did I.
For the program.
Truly, I did. And that's why I said, if he loses clean, something's amiss. Because I agree with you. I think it's a great heat build. I think it doesn't happen very often. The guy doesn't cash in. I think Baron Corbin is young enough and he's big enough and he's strong enough, I think, to come out of that. But he needed to beat John Cena, or at least look good in that match.
Let's talk about the match, because a lot of people are saying it was a very basic match. Break this down for me, because I don't speak smart, but that's your language. What are all these fans talking about when they say a basic match?
Well, to me, what I think that means, because I'm not that smarky man, okay, I'm just a wrestling fan who wants to see people succeed, is John Cena just didn't appear to be taking the match seriously. He showed up as you know what? I've heard it. I believe it's a fellow podcaster named Solomonster. First of all, I mean, he's way more popular than us, so you're probably already listening to his podcast. But go listen to him. He's very, very funny. He's very smart. But he always talks about there being two Cenas. There's serious Cena and poo-poo pee-pee Cena. Okay? Because there's the Cena who cuts one of the most beautiful promos that you can cut in the wrestling business. And then there's a guy who shows up and just says poo-poo, pee-pee, caca jokes. And to me, in that match, he was that Cena. He was playing with JBL's hat. He's in this match with somebody who is supposed to be a threatening heel. And he's not even putting him over by showing him any sort of respect, let alone putting him over clean. He's not even putting over his persona by putting him over as he being an intimidating sort of presence. He's not fazed. He's not even slightly concerned. It's honestly kind of like his WrestleMania match with The Miz all over again. Just underbooked, and there should have been so much more heat. To me, that's what I noticed in the match. He didn't care. He was goofy Cena. This is the end of days. This is the lone wolf. This is a guy who should be one of the future heels of your company. And not only did you not put him over by letting him win, you didn't even put over the fact that he's a big, strong, scary dude.
Well, that's certainly one way to look at it. I don't know that I necessarily agree with it, but that's certainly one way to look at it. And now it looks like he can't continue his program with Cena because they've made the decision to move Cena over to Raw. But it looks like he's now going to be involved with the U.S. title picture. Mm-hmm. So clearly he hasn't lost that much momentum.
Yep.
He hasn't lost that much steam.
We'll see.
I guess we'll have to.
That's all I can say about that is I don't know how they're going to book him from here, but I know that right now his stock is very much damaged.
Let's talk about Enzo Amore in the few scant minutes that we have left, because I want to discuss if he is being punished for the rumored attitude problem that he seems to have, or that he's been rumored to have, backstage. Clearly, the guy hasn't been picking up a lot of wins, and now he's been moved over to 205 Live. So here's my question. Maybe it's because I'm eternal optimist, but is it possible that Enzo is not being punished on television, that the reason he's been jobbed out to Big Cass is because WWE likes Big Cass a lot, and they feel it would damage Cass to lose to Enzo? Maybe they feel like Enzo is kind of untouchable. Let's face it, if nothing else, all of the losses that he's amassed has only proven that you can't touch the guy because he's still just as popular as ever.
I agree with you. I remember that was one of the strange tag team breakups in the sense that, because normally at least there's some sort of a feud coming out of it where you're not really sure. Like Edge and Christian had a feud, and you're not really, like, you're pretty sure Edge is going to come out on top, but you're not 100% sure. But yeah, Cass can't lose to Enzo. He can't. He can't. So I agree with you. I don't know if that's punishment. Now, breaking them up in the first place, however, I mean, do you think the WWE really does think that Cass, who is lost with a microphone in his hands, really, do you think the WWE really does think that he is ready to move on to even a mid-card title, let alone a world title right now?
Shad. JTG and Shad.
Okay.
There's precedent is all
Where's
I'm saying.
Shad now?
Well, absolutely. Hey, listen, I'm not saying it's the right call, but I'm saying, do I believe the WWE would look at these guys and say, you know what? That big dude can't really talk, but man, is he big.
Yeah.
Let's make him the star. Yes,
okay.
I am
you're
willing to
saying
believe that.
You're saying that, yes, the WWE could possibly think that, but that they quite possibly are very wrong?
I'm going to say, much like with the Baron Corbin situation, time is going to have to tell on that one.
I don't know if Enzo... What I will say, though, and this might be slightly controversial, in the sense that if Enzo really is a cancer backstage, I don't know how bad his attitude is. I don't know. But if he really is a cancer backstage, for once, I think the WWE is willing to sacrifice revenue, because let's face it, they were making a lot of money on Enzo and Cass. If they really were willing to sacrifice his popularity to teach him a lesson backstage, good on the WWE. If they were hoping to teach him a lesson backstage and then still make a lot of money on his Enzo wigs, hoping that he wouldn't decline in popularity, that's great.
See, here's the reason that I can't agree with that, is because I still think that the punishment, so to speak, of moving him to 205 Live is the smart idea, because 205 Live has been struggling, and one of the reasons it's been struggling is that they don't have any characters and they don't have any stars. Yeah. And here's what you can say about Enzo Amore. No matter what, he gets people to pay attention. Yeah. And if that's where they're going to put him in a way to boost that show, I think that says a lot more about how they feel about Enzo Amore as a guy who has an ability to make some money for the company. And that's the thing. Breaking up Enzo Amore and Big Cass doesn't show that WWE was willing to roll the dice by making less merchandise money, because Enzo was the guy that came up with all the catchphrases. Enzo was the guy who was putting t-shirts out there. Yeah. It's Enzo Amore. You could just slap Enzo's name over Big Cass's name on all those t-shirts. Yeah. And they still work. Very true. And this is what it comes down to. I'm gonna wrap things up here with my thought on it, which is this. If I'm wrong, and these guys are really being punished by being made to look foolish on TV and being made to look less, not like superstars, then that is one of the stupidest business decisions I think you could ever make as a company
I hate agreeing
whose
with you.
business it is to make stars.
Yeah. Completely agree.
Especially if you've signed these guys into contracts. Yep. You know, Vince, you're smart enough. Yeah. Figure out another way, buddy. Because punishing guys on television,
hurting their stock.
Does it hurting their stock hurts your stock.
Yeah. I cannot for the life of me figure out why they think that's the best way. Why do you have to hurt the future stars?
Any star for that matter.
It makes no sense. It's ridiculous. I don't think Enzo's being punished. I think Baron Corbin might be, but I hope they're both going to be all right. That's all I can say. Because it's stupid. It is stupid.
I think they'll be okay, but I think WWE needs to change their mind when it comes to how they go about punishing those guys, because I think that the punishments clearly don't fit the crime, and they need to catch up with the with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. And that's where we're going to end it. Your call to action this week: rate and review the podcast on iTunes. Give us 5 stars. That's what we like. Give us 1 star if you don't like it. It's Andrew's episode, so you can go ahead and rate that lower. That's fine. Once Matthew Sucrum is back.
I'm the till 5 guy, man. Come on, man.
Well, this ain't We Have Till 5. This is the Wrasslun Show, and until next week, I'm at Adam Kota. That's at Smarks Anonymous. And you know what to do. Listen, share, subscribe, repeat. This
has been a presentation of the Wrasslun Show Network, where everything is wrestling.